Okay, here it is on New Year's Day. I'm trying to get a bounce. Hope you had a great New Year's celebration, and I want to wish everybody a happy New Year. Again, signals have warned of a pullback, which we have now seen happen. Still think Bitcoin is likely going to rise up to the channel line. Currently, that's around the 120 to 125,000 area, but we remain in a risk-off environment here on Bitcoin. Just zoom in right here. You can see that we are currently in a risk-off environment. I'll be watching to see if that changes in January to back to a risk-on environment. The Bitcoin trend tried to turn back to bullish briefly with the rebound back up. We ended up stalling, testing the channel and stalling near the 20-period moving average, and then we reverted right back to the bearish Bitcoin trend here. So again, we remain in a risk-off environment. The Bitcoin trend remains bearish at this time. Risk line is bearish, continuing to be red there. We'll see if that changes. We did get an inverted hammer at key horizontal support. Possible head and shoulders, or the right shoulder is still under construction if that is the case. But it is also possible we have an ABC corrected move that could take Bitcoin higher. I still think Bitcoin's going to go higher myself, but I'll show you the charts and let you make up your own mind. I still think Bitcoin is going to complete a blow off top at higher levels. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the chart, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel. I don't have any sponsors. They contact me all the time. I turn those offers down. I don't want to sell you stuff, and I don't want to send you to a brokerage that wants to get you all leveraged up to wipe you out. That's what they do. You know, websites that want to charge you ridiculous commissions, 2 and 3 time commissions on things for services, exchanges. People that want to try to sell you gold at 3 times commission. It's just a lot of shady deals out there. So I just ask that you support the channel. And if you could partner with me, just follow the link below. It'll take you to a secured site, and you could donate any amount you want to make it a recurring donation. Most of the money on YouTube channels are made through sponsors. I choose not to do that. I don't want to sell you a bunch of stuff you don't need. Don't like all the shady deals on the internet. So I just have a direct relationship with you, but I need to hear from you in order to make it work. If you like all the information in the videos, please let me know that by supporting the channel. If you could take a moment to step up to the plate and help out, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration for that. Again, signals have gone bearish in the daily time frame. Here we broke down, back tested, and again, we're right at horizontal support. The risk is we get a bigger dump right here and now. Can the correction be coming to a conclusion? We did get an inverted hammer at Q support, but signals have to turn back into the positive region. Again, signals the last time turned positive, remained positive, consistently positive, and got into the positive region of the cloud, pull back a couple times, and then pushed higher, pulled back a little bit here. That's when we were testing that 100-period moving average, and we firmed up, and we were consistently in positive territory until the divergence developed here. And again, now we're below it. We're in negative territory. If these signals can flip back to bullish, the advance can resume. Main bearish, we can get a bigger dump. Again, my daily signals are bearish. Daily signals are bullish. We'll eventually get another push higher. On the first trading day of 2025, Bitcoin is trying to bounce off VWAP support from the higher low that's set up with the breakout that we had back over here from this trend line, and horizontal support, a 3-tier support level. Bitcoin is trying to bounce off of that support range right now. Again, even if we go a little bit lower, you're still in that support level, but horizontal support is being tested right now, and we are trying to bounce there. Bitcoin is hitting horizontal support. If it breaks down, you got your 100 period, your 200 period down here. You could get a bigger dump, some of the trend lines I've been talking about. But if we can see the price oscillator begin to firm up and turn back up, and the divergence has just given us a pullback to horizontal support, we can resume the advance, and this could complete possible wave 4. We could get the final wave 5 push higher, but you got to be able to clear this 99,500 area. We got back above the line right here. It turned back from red to blue, got back above the pink line, the 100 period moving average, and we saw the price oscillator and the MACD both go into the positive region with that, and they've been there up until right now. Now, again, deeper into negative territory will give us a deeper sell-off. If we firm up here, we can resume the advance. So we'll be watching, maybe even form a larger divergence in the daily time frame. The MACD and the price oscillator certainly possible if we get a January rally. So again, powerful signals. Daily charts are still bearish. Got to be able to clear this 99,000 area, 99,500 area to resume the advance, get back above the 50 period right there, and move back into the positive green portion of the cloud. Here in the daily time frame, we saw this push below the cloud right here. It acted as since we tried to get above the 20 period moving average there. That's this line right here, and we got rejection there. So we got to be able to clear that 20 period. We got to be able to clear 99,500 if we're going to have the correction conclude here. Because we break horizontal support and get a bigger dump. The head and shoulders, that gives us a bigger dump right here now, or develop a right shoulder that gives us a bigger dump. We'll be watching, but this is we're going to resume the advance, a larger correction or not, that will eventually take us up to that upper channel line I've been talking about. Weekly charts are still bullish, so I mean longer term bullish, but I think a blow off top will conclude. We saw weekly signals turn back to bullish with the breakout momentum in the weekly time frame turn back to bullish right after we hit 52,000. So the weekly charts remain bullish, as you'll see in this video. I see these daily signals go back into positive territory with momentum. Again, we saw the divergence give us the sell-off. Is the correction done, or do we get a bigger dump down to the 100 or 200 period moving average? We'll be watching. Now, as we start the new year, can we flip the cloud back to bullish? Can we get back above that 20 period? An inverted hammer just under the 10 period at key support. Can we clear the 10 and 20, get back above the 50, and flip the cloud? Daily chart of the S&P. Bitcoin. Same thing right here. The cloud is bearish at this point. Line represents short-term momentum, and we have it red still. Cloud represents the short-term swing move. That's bearish at this point. Rebound right here. That would be bullish if we can rebound right here. Again, we got to get momentum back into the positive region. Again, notice we saw the cloud flip over here. A positive on the pullback. This line right here, and I'll show you this line in a moment. Another chart, we pulled back, and that was where our 100 period was, and we turned negative briefly, but then we turned back into positive territory, and we flipped the cloud right back to bullish. Tried to flip bearish briefly and turned right back to bullish, and we had this advance. Well, again, the signal was positive here, and the bottom after 52,000 here and that pullback. So again, really good job marking the turning point and the parabolic rise higher. Now it's bearish. It's got to turn back to bullish. We got to flip signals back to bullish if we're going to resume the advance. I think that will happen. The question is, break support and get a bigger dump first. I think Bitcoin is likely going to make new all-time highs in January. The line you just saw on that other chart is this line right here, that black line we saw a moment ago that Bitcoin was trying to test. Well, that's this line right here. If we can bounce there, we can resume the advance. If you dump here and get a solid push below it, which we're trying to, that inverted hammer around key support at this level, then again, rebound. If you can do that, if it fails, you break support, you can get the bigger dump. After the advance, the March high, we lost this level. We lost this level right there and fell below it, and it acted as resistance. Tried to get back above it here, and it failed. Tried to get back above it here, and it failed. Finally, we got back above it after 52,000, cleared it, and now that acted as support, as we saw in the other chart in here. And now, again, we bounce off this area. The ribbon represents the short-term momentum. This represents the short-term swing move. It was bullish during the advance up into the March high. It was bearish during the chop and slop, the 33% drop, and then it turned back to bullish reversal that led to momentum flipping in the weekly time frame, and then also the breakout here of the channel, the bull flag, remained bullish, and now trying to flip back to bearish, but momentum is bearish. It's starting to turn back from blue to red here. Risk is we get a bigger dump if key support breaks, but again, even if we get a bigger sell-off, I still think we're likely going to make new highs. But we'll be watching. Signals in the daily time frame are bearish. Signals in the weekly time frame are bullish. And how about this chart right here? Again, nice divergence right here. Again, this is the swing move up. Turned bullish after that. Just bring this up here. After that 52,000 area began to get above Bitcoin's average price. This line represents the short-term momentum. Turned back to bullish first, and then we saw the trend. Right after that, the swing trend had the pullback towards that 100 period I talked about, and that was these moves, again, briefly negative, but then right back into positive territory right there, and the run-up, now it's bearish. So again, momentum bearish, the swing move bearish. We'll see what happens here at Bitcoin's average price. Do we bounce or do we fall below it and get a bigger dump? We'll be watching horizontal support. I think in the next few weeks, Bitcoin can rally up to a new high. We're getting in the 2-week time frame. We're getting a bar 8. That will complete by January 10th, and then bar 9 by the 24th of January, right after the inauguration of President Trump. That be a sell the news event. We'll be watching. So far in this count, bar 7 is the high of the count. It was 9 count that marked the 2021 top. We could see something very similar to that here, the 2-week time frame. So I have an 11 of a 13 that could develop double sequence count reversal signal. But if the 9 count or 13 count develops first, the same bar 13 count would override the 9. Something worth watching here. We're getting bar 8 as we start the year and the tail end of our 2024 trading days of 2024. So just something I'm paying attention to. If we get a rally, bar 8 or 9 has to be the high of the count for it to be a perfected signal. Something worth paying attention to. Go a little bit lower, we have bar 6 of a 9 to the downside. That may not complete if we bounce off horizontal support, but we did complete a 13 with our gravestone doji at the peak. It was a confirmed reversal. This 13.9 gave us a sideways correction, and we rallied up higher. We sold off 9%, rallied up even more, and then we ended up selling off 15% and drifting a little bit lower, down 15.70%, I believe it is. Counts show price exhaustion, but again, if we can rally and we end up getting a 3 drives, a 3 drives to a high, then we may see that count develop in the 2-week time frame. Around the inauguration of President Trump, buy the rumor, sell the news. Again, concerns about inflation. The bond market is telling us anyways. 13 count did a very nice job of marking that peak, and I talked about that back at the time on the daily chart of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin currently, to start the new year off, we're up 1.30%. We did get an inverted hammer at key horizontal support. You can see that right there. An inverted hammer is a possible reversal candle pattern, but we have to confirm it by closing back above the high of the bar and then get a follow through, get back above the 50 period moving average here, back above the 10. The 10 is crossed below the 20. The 20 is not yet crossed below the 50. We'll be watching to see, can we get back above that 10, and then if we do, back above the 50. Again, we're right below the 10, right below the 50, below that. The 10 is below the 50, I should say. And then that 20 period, we got rejection at it right here. We broke down after the gravestone doji right there, and we dropped 15%. We rebounded back up. We got rejection at the 20 period, and then we came back down and we dropped a little bit further, almost 16%, 15.70%. Now we're trying to rebound. So again, can we rebound off of this key support level? It is possible, though, that we are still forming a larger head and shoulders pattern with the left shoulder here, the head, and then again, this whole thing being the right side of the head, and now we get the right shoulder. That is a possibility as well if we go back up and can't make new highs or don't see signals really validate a reversal. So we'll be watching. It could just be a counter trend and for a bigger sell-off. Catch your 100 period down here. Bitcoin follows a 100 period moving average. Again, regardless of how it plays out, and again, it could be that we are now completing this ABC structure, and now we resume the advance and we go towards 120, 120 125,000 or so, 120, 125,000, which is the current level where that upper boundary of the channel is that I've been talking about. So we'll be watching to see what happens. Possible head and shoulders or possible broadening formation here, which is right angled and ascending, right angled and ascending. So again, if this breaks down, then the risk is Bitcoin gets a bigger drop right here, right now. If we can rebound and flip everything back to bullish, then this is just a corrective move. I still think we're going to reach that upper channel line. And here's a channel. This is our log scaling in the weekly time frame. I still think we're going to come up and hit this upper boundary here. Now, we didn't do it over the last 7 weeks or so. I think we will end up doing it because we didn't do it immediately. Formed the divergences in the daily time frame and on the 60-minute charts. Our signals warned we were going to get some kind of pullback. Put out that red alert. When we hit the trend line, we were predicting we were going to go to those other trend lines. Got a reaction off of those trend lines with our linear and the log scaling there in the weekly time frame that I've been talking about in every single video. Still think we're likely going to reach this upper channel line, and if we do it in January, we could reach the 120 to 125,000 area. Excuse my voice, it's a little hoarse for New Year's here. So whether we get a bigger pullback or whether we are completing this at horizontal support, with nearly a 16% sell-off, we'll be watching, but I still think we're going to come up here and end up reaching this level. And like I said, if we do that here in January or so, you're going to be moving somewhere in between the 120,000 area to the 125,000 area or so. Just eyeballing it there. That could be a target, the blow off top to complete if recession starts in the first quarter or second quarters. I believe it will, where recession indicators are warning that that is going to happen. Several recession indicators that are flashing before 2025 ever started. Reliable recession indicators that have a proven track record. I do think that they will correct again. The Fed is clueless, telling us, no, we've dodged a recession. That's what Powell said at this last C meeting, that we have successfully avoided, that's what he said, avoided a recession. And that's just arrogance on the part of the Fed. They can micromanage the economy. They're dismissing all the recession indicators that I've talked about in my stock videos. This is where I think we are headed. Get a bigger pullback or not, we'll see. But again, because we have the possibility of a little broadening formation or a head and shoulders that gives us a bigger pullback. Even if we get it, I still think we come up into this channel line right here before Bitcoin tops, and I think that will likely be in January, possibly in the first quarter. But as I've said, I think we could reach it. I told you I thought we'd reach it in December or January. We did not reach it. We came just shy of it there in December. I still think we will end up reaching it, but we failed to do so in December. Again, nobody thinks we're going to have a recession. Everybody thinks we're going to have very few cuts or no cuts. The herd believes is bullish. End up getting the cuts. Going to be because recession is coming, the recession that nobody sees. Everybody's ignoring the warning signs. Happen to believe the recession indicators. It's going to be blindsided. The herd's going to be blindsided. The bond market is going to be blindsided. Everybody's expecting higher inflation. Inflation is going to rise. But the conventional wisdom is, that's going to cause the Fed not to be able to cut. The Fed is still going to cut, just like in 2008. Recession showed up in December of 2007. Inflation was higher than it is right now. Inflation kept rising, yet the Fed cut because recession was up, and the recession actually started. The Fed did an emergency cut. Made a list of my predictions for 2025. You can go read them on Twitter, or only Twitter, now X, at Charting Prodigy. I think Bitcoin will peak in the first quarter, but more likely in January. The inauguration of President Trump could be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Trump rally, the Trump pump as it's being called on social media, and it very well could be, again, concerns about inflation with the tax cuts and with the tariffs. Bond market is, we've seen the yields rise. It's caused the Fed to second guess themselves after they're cutting. You have in your yield sharply rising 100 basis points. The Fed Fed funds rate dropping 100 basis points, first time in history that's ever happened. That's causing the Fed to second guess themselves with the election of President Trump and the narrative that we're going to get this overheating economy, that we're going to now just get this rip-roaring economy. Trump is probably going to inherit a recession based on what we're seeing with the recession indicators. I still think we'll get a pump into January, into the inauguration day, but I think it could be a sell the news event for Bitcoin. This is where I think we're headed, probably 120 to 125,000. It was near closer to 115,000. We reached it sooner rather than later, but like I said, we had those divergences begin to give us a sell-off there in the daily time frame. The divergences that set up the MACD and the RSI. That's given us a sell-off of nearly 16%. Seeing distribution with Bitcoin here with this sell-off showed up at the very start. It started turning down off of those trend lines I talked about. That doesn't mean we can't go higher. Again, we could have something like what we had over here, where we had distribution into the rallies that eventually gave us a 55% sell-off. Here we had the accumulation signal with the higher low that's set up there at 52,000. So we could still go higher and see distribution into that upper channel line, which I think is likely going to be the case, and that could create a major top for Bitcoin. I think we're getting a 5-leg push higher right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is 4 and 5. That's what I think is likely going to be the case. The 4 could be deeper with a deeper pullback still. Still think we move to a new all-time high with Bitcoin before all is said and done, whether a deeper pullback or whether this is wrapping up at horizontal support. The conventional wisdom is we're going to just continue on and go to 200, 250, 300,000, 500,000, all these different target levels. And again, pretty good shot. We're probably going to stall right at this trend line, this channel line. It stalled just above overhead resistance here, right at this trend line here that gave us 8-month sell-off of about 33%. So again, I think we're likely going to get a wave 5 pushing on up into this level, and then I think it will conclude the Bitcoin rally. Like I said, my signals remain bullish in the weekly time frame. In the daily time frame, they're bearish. They revert back to bullish in the new year here in January, can resume the advance. But right now, the weekly chart is still bullish. To me to believe we'll get this blow-off top on Bitcoin at higher levels. Bitcoin will reach that upper channel line. Here it is with the fib channel. And then I think we'll eventually drop back below the 20-week moving average, which will rise higher. I think we'll fall below the 20-week and fall below the 50 level on the RSI in the weekly time frame, and we'll get another leg down like when we did over here when we dropped below the 20-week moving average. I think it could conclude the blow-off top, and session will be very problematic for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's never gone through a legitimate recession where we've had a bear market. That's why everybody doesn't believe that the rate cuts are bearish, because the stimulus, all this demand, economies were shutting down and we had supply chain disruptions, created the inflation. Move into a deflationary environment. We're going to get a deflationary bust. The stock market reset. We're going to see Bitcoin reset. In Bitcoin's history, we've never had it go through a bear market. When the stock market goes through a bear market, it will be more intense. But one reason why we're getting all these predictions for Bitcoin going to 2 and 3 and 4, 500,000, 700,000 is because nobody thinks that we're going to have a recession. And if we do, then they'll still say, oh, Bitcoin is the safe haven. During the recession, the dollar will surge and Bitcoin will collapse. And again, we've seen both of them move higher. One of them is wrong. I think Bitcoin goes up into this area and finishes up into the upper channel line and finishes below off top. Signals remain bullish in the weekly time frame, so I still think we're going to go higher. Weekly signals, momentum is still bullish. Trend signals are still bullish. Momentum turned bullish right after we got that higher low at 52,000. Shortly after that, we had the breakout. And again, as we were just about to break out, and with the breakout, we saw trend signals turn back to bullish in the weekly time frame. They remain bullish. The bulls are in control. So while the signals predicted we were going to get this pullback with the divergences in the daily time frame and in the 4-hour time frame, I still remain longer term bullish because these signals remain bullish. Weekly signals are still bullish for Bitcoin. The trend signal turned back to bullish here with the cloud after momentum turned bullish with the higher low that's set up here in the weekly time frame. We turned off these trend lines. I warned you about these trend lines that we're likely going to rise up to them, and then I told you to be watching. We try to overthrow them and go to that next level of resistance channel line, or do we get reactions off of them? But I told you when we hit them signals, I send out a red alert, we started to turn, did that red alert video, we started to turn off of them. That's what we've seen so far here. This is a trend line with the linear scaling from 2017, and we hit this level right on the nose. If we can clear this level, again, we may just go back up to the trend line and stall, top out that way. But if we can clear this trend line, again, we can rise to that upper channel line, which I think is more likely. That would take us closer to 120 to 125,000 for Bitcoin, and that could possibly be reached in January. Line's a target, that's our current target level, but this target was reached as we went parabolic towards it. This is our linear scaling with Bitcoin. Possible we have a top here, but we would need to see the weekly signals begin to turn bearish, as I've said. Right now, we're testing here as first day of trading for the new year. We're testing our 10-week moving average, and we're bouncing off of it. If we can bounce off of it, we can clear this level. We can go up to that upper channel line. This is the log scaling, and we turned off the trend line here from the 2021 low, excluding the shadows here in early 2022. And we tried to get back above it. Move failed, and we got a reversal off of it, and we've dropped about just under 16%. We're hitting our 10-week moving average. If we can bounce off of it, we could try to clear this level, and again, that could be the pullback. If we get a bigger pullback, you got your 20-week moving average down here. That's a blue line. We bounced off the 50-week moving average here in the weekly time frame. I talked about that at 49,000 and 52,000 when we got those bounces. If Bitcoin can bounce off the 10-week moving average and get back above this trend line right here, again with our log scaling and the one with our linear that we looked at earlier, then we can go up to this channel line right here, which we've looked at earlier, and again, take Bitcoin somewhere between 120,000 to 125,000, depending on when we come into contact with the upper channel line. So that's what I think is likely going to be the case, and then I think that will terminate the bull run for Bitcoin here. Likely see a reversal, and the recession, Bitcoin will start pricing in recession, but that could be a target level along with this trend line right here if we can't clear it. Again, I talked about these lows pointing to the next high over here, which was the case. It's possible we have that here, but again, I'm looking at this upper channel line. Bitcoin tends to reach the channel target levels long term. So my guess is we're going to likely reach this upper channel line in the first quarter, and possibly in January. I think it's very possible we get a peak in January on Bitcoin, or if we don't, in the first quarter. In the new year, it might start going parabolic again and reach this area rather quickly. Now, even though my daily signals are bearish, weekly signals are still bullish, and it's causing me to believe that we're going to go up and hit that upper channel line, the blue upper line right here on this chart, and likely form a divergence on the RSI right here. And I think that will mark a top probably in January, now at some point in the first quarter here of 2025. I think you're going to get this divergence, and I think that will complete a Bitcoin blow off top and complete our 5-leg push higher right here on Bitcoin. About if we had a top at this trend line right here from the 2021 low, then we can have something like what we had over here. But to drop back below the 20-week moving average, we'd have to have the RSI drop back below 50 to validate that. We don't have that yet. Still above 50 on the RSI. We're still above the 20. Again, we still have a bullish 2050 signal above the 20, above the 50 on the RSI. A bullish 2050 signal still in play. The bulls are still in control. So again, I remain bullish longer term with the weekly chart. I think that we'll likely get a blow off top probably around 120 to 125,000. Trend line's a target, and if it takes longer to reach there going into the first quarter, then the target might rise a little bit. But right now, it's looking like that's the area we would likely reach in January. So I think we're going to see that RSI likely turn back up here and form this divergence in the most recent price action and form a larger divergence with the peak over here from our March peak earlier in 2024. A multiple point divergence, which again, multiple point divergences produce reversals, which is what we had back at the peak over here in 2021. And here it is again. Look at the RSI again, bullish 2050 signals, and then it turned bearish when we went sideways here. The bulls stepped up to the plate and flipped the signals back to bullish, and the bulls are now in control. I think we'll see the daily signals turn back to bullish, and we had divergences formed back in 2021, very similar to what we have here. Although the MACD is moving higher, momentum and the price oscillator are not. They are still forming divergences here in the weekly time frame. Those divergences will complete near this upper channel line right here. I talked about these divergences forming here. We had this one that gave us a 9% sell-off. This one's given us almost a 16% sell-off right here, this triple divergence with momentum. But we're down at extreme. So can we rebound back up here just under a 50-period moving average? Or do we attempt a bigger sell-off down towards the 100, maybe the trend line here, excluding the shadow right here? I've drawn a line also including the shadow and some areas I'm looking at on other charts. I've included the shadow, excluded it on different charts. But again, possible right shoulder done here if we start breaking down, or maybe we get a right shoulder if we get a bigger sell-off. Maybe this is part of the right side of the head, but possibly an ABC is done, and we now start moving to a higher level and maybe get a 3 drives to a high, moving towards 120 to 125,000. We had divergences on other indicators, not just momentum. About it on the RSI right here in the daily time frame, and again we broke down from this little channel. We back tested it, stalled at the 20 period, breaking down from the 20 period, and now we're resting on horizontal support. Now here's the trend line that I've drawn from this low right here. Here's the trend line including the shadow right here. The other chart I excluded it, and again the 100 period here, the 200 period here, just near that horizontal support level. So do we get a bigger dump right now, or do we bounce, move towards that upper channel line? Again, we've seen the RSI go below 50. So again, going to be watching to see if it can get back above that level. Is the correction done, or do we get a bigger correction? But I still believe Bitcoin is likely going to move to new all-time highs. But I'm open-minded to a top around the trend lines in the weekly time frame that I've shown you, with the linear and the log scaling possible, but we need to see evidence of that. Weekly signals validating it, and then start dropping below the 20-week moving average, start taking out the 100-day moving average here in the daily time frame. Also had the divergence here on the MACD. The MACD, if it firms up around the center line here, it could mark a bottom. We got an inverted hammer on the last day of trading for 2024. Now we're trying to bounce. If that is a bottom, then we need to see the MACD recycle back up and go into positive territory. If it remains in negative territory, Bitcoin is at risk of breaking horizontal support and getting a bigger dump. So again, if we do get a bigger dump, I'll be watching this trend line right here, just a little bit lower. And then the trend lines I've talked about, including the shadow, excluding the shadow, are 100, our 50 period, and horizontal support. Should we end up getting a bigger dump, new highs are likely here in early 2025 and probably January. You got a good shot, we'll probably see it. So if this is a wave forward and it's now completing or nearly complete, then maybe it's more of a shallow retracement rather than something deeper down in here. Bitcoin's got to clear this 99,550 area if we're going to resume the advance. The risk is that we break down further and go to the 100 period, and then we need to see momentum turn back to bullish. We need to see the RSI turn back to bullish, getting back above 50. Again, notice, coin follows the 100 period moving average. You got above the pink line, the 100 period moving average. The RSI moved into positive territory. We got the pullback to the 100 period moving average 2 times. We turned briefly negative. We resumed getting back above 50 on the RSI, and we had the advance, formed the negative divergence on the RSI, and we had 16, nearly 16% sell-off. We're now in negative territory. If it remains there below 50, a bigger dump. Okay, but if we get back into positive territory and it can remain there like it did over here, we resumed the advance when we got back above 50 and stayed there. And again, the pullbacks towards 50 were the corrections. We got back above the dotted line here. We got back above the 100 period, pulled back to those levels, found support, and remained above the dotted line. We broke it. Now it's resistance. And again, if we get a bigger pullback, you got the 100 period again. If we get back above the dotted line, we can resume the advance, and then it'll have to be validated with signals going positive, again, like the RSI momentum, and down here with the price oscillator and the MACD. And they turned positive when we got above that 100 period moving average, stayed above it. We firmed up when we got the pullback here to it, and now they've gone negative. So if they can firm up, we can resume the advance, hold above the 100 period, get back above that dotted line. But if we stay in negative territory, the risk is we go back and test our 100 period moving average. That's the pink line.